Hello, my name is Charles, and in today's video, we are going to go over kind of a personal, but also hopefully hopeful and inspiring topic, which is what is it like? What is living with schizoaffective like, and like what is it like being in psychosis or psychotic? And then what is it like, how can you return back to a healthy way and, essentially live a normal, happy, sensible, enjoyable, love-filled life, How can you enjoy it in existence, be sane of mind? So what is it like for people with schiz or schizoaffective, when they're in their worst and when they're back to their healthy state? And then how do you get there? So first, it's a little bit of story time, right? It's a little bit of story time. So I, growing up, lived pretty, so let's just say like middle class, upper middle class, living a normal life, having fun, played soccer, had a good amount of friends, normal relationships, things were good, right? I played a lot of League of Legends, but for the most part, I had a pretty normal brain. Nothing seemed too out of the ordinary. I could, hang out, do what everyone else was doing, and there's nothing different. Then around 17 and a half, maybe around 17, I don't know the exact date, right? But essentially, a gradual boost in mood. A very gradual, but then finally like an elevated mood began to arise. And so for those who don't know what this is like, right, or to make this more clear, more lucid, imagine, right, we all have oscillations of mood, right? We make some money, we get our paycheck every 2 weeks, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go, bless my girlfriend, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go, buy my favorite, food at the restaurant, whatever it may be. And that's like, boost in mood. We also have like, boost in mood that are like loving, like, you open up to a friend and you hug them and you're like, yeah, I have a good friend, right? There's love and a feeling of goodness, but there's also lows in mood, right? But normal oscillations. It happens within like a regular range. Like if you imagine here is the regular range, or here's baseline, and then there's a regular range of emotion that's just like, that's where you kind of oscillate. Your mood goes, but it doesn't, like the waves don't go too high and the waves don't go too low. There's kind of, for most people. But imagine, you just get this gradual increase in elevated mood and energy. And it's not coming from, better sleep, exercise, diet, nutrition, love, compassion, right? It's not, let me take out my Zen. It's not coming from those things. It's really not. And so if you were, truly, if, this is going to be a little long form video, so pardon me if I talk a decent amount. But if you were truly like lucid and rational and you could deduce and be self-aware, like, I'm getting more energy and I'm not even doing like the healthy things that get me the energy or any more of them, you may be like, this is not right. Like this is not how humans function. But in those kind of states, you don't, or at least initially, you don't really reason that out. And so the mood just kept elevating. And eventually you reach a point and the thoughts, or your mind almost becomes more loud. I guess the clearest way to kind of describe schiz, your mind becomes more loud. The emotions are a lot more intense when you're going through like the worst of it. They're a lot more like, they grip you a lot more. Like they really grab your attention. You're like, oh, like you just feel emboldened at times. You have like way more energy sometimes, or sometimes you're like sunken and you feel like hollow and you have like, you just want to lay down in your bed and do nothing, like essentially go catatonic. And so that's, and then also your thoughts become louder. Like they're not as, like let's say, when you're grounded and your brain's functioning properly, the neurochemistry's there. I think there's like two hypotheses for schits, like the dopamine hypothesis and the glutamate hypothesis. So let's assume your dopamine and glutamate all's functioning well or whatever. And right, brain chemicals are all functioning well in essence. You think about like you can have like abstract or, conceptual thought, but you think about kind of some practical things. Your thoughts are pretty, most of the time, ordered, unless you're like under emotional distress. You wake up in the morning, what do I want to do today? What would be good when you're thinking about what to eat? There's some degree of sensibility. There's some degree of like, but that cookie would just taste so good. But, I really shouldn't, right? It's just kind of like a normal, ordinary, sensible thinking. But in this state, it's like you're such elevated mood, such almost grandiosity that you really, that's not really what it's about anymore. Now it's, cosmic thoughts about this, that, being one with the universe every moment, and your brain is like oozing dopamine, and you feel like you don't even need sleep. Sleep? I mean, what do you need it for? You got infinite energy. And somehow in those skit states, it doesn't even occur to you that like, my body always needs sleep, and now I just have infinite energy. Maybe something's wrong. But yeah, it just keeps going and going. And then at some point, right, you just get some delusions. I mean, you're still like, you can still be emotional or empathetic and like compassionate. You can still be a good person. Honestly, you still have good values and good morals. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to just go do terrible things. You could actually be like really kind and loving, even in those states. But what else? Oh yeah, at a certain point, the dopamine keeps going. And then the delusions and then hallucinations. Those are like the key thing. So for me, I was in high school, or senior year of high school. I'm maybe 17 and a half, almost 18. And I had an auditory hallucination as my first one. And it was just a whisper of a name. It sounded as if, right? So there's mental chatter in the skull, right? What am I going to do today? What homework do I need to get done? I kind of like this video game. Someone cuts you off on the road, you're like, man, F that guy or whatever, right? There's normal mental commentary on our life, right? Totally normal. But it's not audible. It doesn't it doesn't sound like when I'm talking to you now, like an external sound. But that's what it sounded. That's what it was. And it was the origin was simply just my brain, like fabricating it into existence. And I was aware of that. I was aware that no one, like I looked around and no one was there, and I was like, we're going to pretend like that didn't happen. All right. And so that was my first reaction. Probably should have in that moment been like, I should go do something. Now that is it at the worst, right? That's really what it feels like, is you're grandiose, you're living the dream, but you're not actually living the dream. And you're so elated and dopaminergic that, yeah, like my biggest delusion or like grandiose vision was like, I'm going to go be a homeless poet in India. And that's what I'm going to do. And that was just wild and crazy and dumb. And so then how do you get from there to like, okay, like where I am now? Where I am now is like, I'm in college. I'm doing relatively well. I have a computer science internship. As a back-end data automation intern, I'm able to work jobs. I have a wonderful, devoted romantic relationship. I got good relations with my family. I have a decent amount of friends. Life's pretty normal. I can go to the gym, relatively frequently if I'm not like lazy, and I do. So like, things are going pretty well, right? Obviously, we all have our ups and our downs, but for the most part, I'm doing pretty well now. So how do you get from a kid in high school who is fully convinced that he's going to become a homeless poet in India, and he's, voluntarily, right? I could have slept in my nice, 3,000 square foot parents' house in a comfortable bed. But when I was in my worst, I was like, no, I'm not materialistic. I'm a psychotic spiritual guy, and I got to go sleep in the bushes. So that going from that to like where I am now, which is like healthy, happy, in a good romantic relationship, like mostly stable brain. Like, how do you get there, and why is it very, very possible? Um, what's really nice, and I hope this provides hope to everyone who has it, and even insight to people who are like, what is it like living with schizophrenia? Like, what's it like? What happens? Um, so that's kind of yeah. Oh, how do you get? What's the? Sorry, I got a little tripped up. I don't usually share this too much, but I got a little tripped up. How do you get there? Is essentially through medication, and then a lot of like peer support. A lot of love will get you through it, because like you need love and essentially medication. And I know that to some, especially when I first got it, there's for a lot of people out there, whoever's watching this with tripping over my words, schizophrenia or schizoaffective, a lot of people will be like, man, I don't want to take my meds. I don't need that. Or like, this, I thought at first too, I was like 18, right? I lived a totally normal life, mostly normal life up until then. And I get presented with the fact that like, hey, you have this pathological thing. You just got to take it for the rest of your life. You don't got a choice. Like, that's just the way the cookie crumbled. And my brain interprets it as, oh, you're just born. I was born wrong. Like, fundamentally, the creator just put the cookie jar, like, or when cooking me up, just made me a little wrong. Like, I was just born wrong. I was like, this is so unfair, and let that like flare of resentment pops up. And so there is truly a way past that, because it's not that you were born wrong, although it is pathological. Like, meaning, for those who don't know what pathological, it's just genetic or hardwired. It's just like how you are, so to speak. But there is a path forward, and the path forward is love and medication, and there is truly hope. You're not born wrong. There's like, with medication, that'll solve the neurochemistry, and then like the social support from friends, family, and even a loved one really do create a conducive, just ability to be well. And so there truly is hope. There's remarkable, in my experience, I found in Vega, or there's like Invega Sustaina and Vega Trenza, but there's like injections that you could just take once a month, once every 3 months. There's even one, I think, once Invega Hafera or whatever, that's like 6 months to a year. So you could just get a shot once a year. And for that whole year, like, you're within the normal range, and you can have a happy, beautiful, sensible life where you're not talking to the pigeons in the park, hallucinating, and you're able to be successful and happy and love all the people you care about. Is that so bad in comparison? And now I'm speaking to the people who have it. Is that so bad in comparison to just taking a shot or taking a med? So to all those who have it, I assure you, the life when you take the meds is just far, far greater. It's just, why not? How hard is it really? Just think there's a lot of people out there who, or for at least, hopefully, there's a lot of people out there who really care about you. And you're probably going to make them a lot happier if you're able to love them in a sensible way. If you're able to show up for them. I mean that. That certainly is the biggest reason for me. And secondly, if you're ever, because I get it for people who are watching, like, now to address the other side, for people who are watching, like, what's it like with schizophrenia or schizoaffective? Like, why wouldn't you take the med, man? For those who have it, that abundant, elated state it's truly like you're just bubbling in infinite pleasure, but not like pleasure from like food. It's just this like elation and energy, and you're just essentially good, like pure like people drink a coffee to wake them up and feel a little bit better, or they drink a little bit of alcohol at a party in college to feel a little bit better. Imagine this, but you're all the way up here, 24/7. And so it's really, really tantalizing, but it's a false appearance of happiness. It's a false joy, because and so I get why people, if you're trying to understand, like, why wouldn't people take their meds? For those who don't have it, it's because they're so tantalized by that, like, infinite rising of dopamine, but they lose themselves and they lose their ability to love properly and engage with people. And so, truly, to anyone who hasn't, and anyone who knows someone who does, find gentle ways to encourage them. If you are someone who has it, it really does help. And just love and support is honestly the biggest way. Because when the person who has it knows that taking it truly benefits the people around them, as long as they're pretty well adjusted or like loving or good, and this is at least in my case, the decision is ultimately already made. So if you have it, surround yourself with people who love you, care about you, want you well. And if you don't have it and you know someone who does, give them as much love and support and gently encourage them. If you can find a way to get them to take it that's healthy, it is for all the better. And so I hope for everyone watching, this elucidated, some clear kind of like, what's it like, What's it like? Sorry, I lagged out. This is a little emotional for me, so I'm sorry if it's like talking a little fragmented, or it's definitely just, it was big in my life. And so I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope this allows for kind of greater compassion for people, greater awareness, and if you at all have questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. I would be happy to answer them. God bless and have a wonderful, wonderful day.